All right, everyone. Beijing Biden's first State of the Union has been scheduled. Not for January or February, though. Normally, there's a 4-week period in which the State of the Union tends to take place, roughly from early January, like the second week, through the first week of February. It's rarely punted to the second week of February. Joe Biden won't be giving his State of the Union until the 1st of March. He's been given the official, it's pomp and circumstance bullshit, but he's been given the official invitation by Pelosi. He's been asked into the chamber and stuff, and it's there's a very, it's a pompous sort of ritualism. It's more Romanism than anything else. It has nothing to do with pragmatism. And Biden will go there and deliver his State of the Union, and of course, he'll get a standing ovation by the Democrats, who will pretend like everything's great. The Republicans will largely sit there with a dour look on their face, other than Liz Cheney and people like that. They're happy to see Biden in there. At least it's not Orange Man. Oh my God, he was so terrible. The economy was functioning. Oh my God, there wasn't looming war over Ukraine or Taiwan. Those Trump years were sure something terrible. And then the Republicans will give a rebuttal. It'll probably be neocons doing it. It'll be like the Ted Cruz sellout side of the party. They're not going to have Matt Gaetz doing it. And they'll probably have their own rogue conference, which will be hilarious. It'll be more popular. They'll probably do a Rumble exclusive. But this is a Hail Mary. I'd like to point out that the reason why this was pushed to March 1st is because of soaring Omicron cases, terrible new jobs report. They're hoping to have one more to cover their ass, I suppose, next month. It's a Hail Mary. Right now, the State of the Union is terrible. And so they're hoping that it's a little less terrible in February. If the COVID cases start to decline, part of his State of the Union, a big part of it, will be taking credit for that. Well, our new measures that I didn't impose, because I literally went back to what Trump was doing, have done exactly what we thought it would do, and it's prevented Omicron from continuing to spread. Now, it'll be echoed in literally the stats in every other country, whether there was or was not any new restrictions. But he will take credit for it. It'll rouse up the liberals. They'll give him credit for it. The Dem partisans will clap, and they'll be happy. Everyone else in the country will realize it's horse shit. Fact checkers will be blocked by the legacy media. They'll applaud Biden. I guarantee CNN, MSNBC, all these groups, they will have nothing but glowing reviews for his State of the Union, for which he will be immaculately prepped. It'll be immaculately scripted. He's not going to go off script. That's why he won't start talking about ice cream or his dog or something. And at the end of the day, nothing ultimately will have changed. Now, before I get into this further, links down below in a pinned comment. If you're watching this video on YouTube, keep in mind I make exclusive content every single day on those platforms. It doesn't go on YouTube, especially on Rumble right now. We're headed up towards 56,000 people following. The site has exploded with growth. Odyssey and BitChute still growing. Now, those sites are the place to be at this point. On YouTube, I've been dead in the water now for months and months, and I'm lucky not to have slid backwards as many creators have had the misfortune to do. I consider myself one of the lucky ones because I'm not losing subscribers because of their algorithmic demotion. Anyway, with regards to this is the fact is that pushing the State of the Union back to an unprecedented level, there has been no modern State of the Union delivered later than the middle of February. Just so that we're aware, they are always in January or February, never in the end of February either. I think the latest was at one point the 15th. I think that was under Obama, but I can't remember. In times of crisis, it can be pushed back a few weeks. Nobody's pushed it back to March. It has not been done before. In fact, I don't know if the history of State of the Unions includes that, going back maybe till World War II era. Reagan established the early February precedent, and rarely is that deviated from. So usually they're like, I want to get it out of the way. If the State of the Union is good, you want to brag about it in January. You want to brag about it around as early as possible. Hey, the State of the Union's robust. Inflation's under control. Unemployment's down. We're building record jobs. Our military is at top readiness. We're in no major wars. Everything's hunky-dory. Crime is falling. And gold is rushing like rivers through our streets. You'd want to make a really early State of the Union. You'd want to make it like on January 1st. You'd be like, no, fuck, Speaker of the House, please get me in there as quickly as possible. If they're from the other party, they'll chuckle and maybe delay it a few weeks. The fact that he's punting it to March shows me that right now he understands. He's not dumb, he's just evil. He understands that if he gives the State of the Union address, let's say he were making it today, you've got surging COVID cases. Well, he can't talk about that too much. He can say, well, we're doing additional preparation, sending out additional tests, and then he can blame Orange Man. That's the other part. A lot of the State of the Union will be thinly guised blaming the last dude that was in office. That's going to fall flat with independence. He's been in there a year and he hasn't accomplished anything. They're beginning to think that the shtick is wearing thin. Democrats won't mind, though. They've got Trump derangement syndrome so bad, them and a handful of never-Trumpers like Liz Cheney, they'll never admit to the fact that Joe Biden's ever done anything wrong. He can't tout the jobs report that we just had, which is why he's pushing it ahead. He's hoping that January's job report that you get in the middle of February, he's hoping that one's better than the last one that came in 250,000 below expected. He will tout supposed job creation, although by March 1st, there will still be less jobs in the United States than there were at the beginning of the pandemic. To be clear, most of those jobs were restored under the last few months of Trump. To be clear, that was technically, if you want to give someone credit for creating jobs that weren't technically created at all, Trump was the one that had that reabsorbed. Unemployment went up towards the double digits. It had already fallen considerably down to a historically appropriate level before Trump left office. Biden is taking credit for job creation that's the result of the ending of state-level lockdowns. He can't talk about the crime rate. He certainly can't talk about inflation, although they're apparently, Kate Law, I think, was talking about this the other day. They're trying to fiddle around with how they measure inflation to make it look less virulent. The problem is, even if you do that, it's climbing so quickly that it's not clear that you'd have time for that to take effect and actually measurably reduce the inflation, even if you're playing with the numbers. It'd still be historically high. Maybe he's just hoping that the next inflation, he's going to say, well, inflation has peaked and it's coming back down by 0.5% or something, and that won't even be true. He'll probably try to do that. And mostly what you'll see is shenanigans. It'll be a mess of sloganeering, but it won't matter, because the people that still support him will continue to support him. He's probably hit his soft approval floor. By the way, I can analyze polls by looking at the graph pretty easily. So can you. It's kind of a no-brainer. 42, 41, somewhere around the low 40s is a soft floor. He has to really mess up, or he has to mess up continuously for an extended period of time to drive it below that floor. If he cracks it, Lord help him, because he becomes a lame duck. Anyway, he has not hit his apparent soft ceiling of disapproval. It's still rising. I wouldn't have delayed it. I would have come out, taken my lumps, given a truncated State of the Union address, and hoped not to lose too much support over it. He'll probably completely ignore inflation. Again, even with toying with the numbers, he'll be able to say, well, in passing, he'll mention, well, inflation has peaked, which it won't have done. He's trying to do that, by the way, so that it'll concord to what the Fed said with regards to it peaking in February. The problem is that last number technically would be the January number. By March 1st, you don't get the inflation numbers for February on the first day. That's why they're probably trying to toy with them. You've got looming problems, diplomatically, with China and with Russia. The Democrats have re-solidified against Ted Cruz's plan to restore the Nord Stream sanctions because they think that Biden needs to conduct diplomacy with the Russians and stop an attack on Ukraine. Boy, oh boy, wouldn't it be interesting if right before March 1st, Putin's tanks roll into Kiev? Biden wouldn't even mention it. Well, some people did something, is what they would say. You've got record COVID cases. You've got inflation that hasn't been as high as since Jimmy Carter. The Jimmy Carter era, the end of his presidency, is the last time we had inflation nearing 7%. You don't have lower joblessness. Unemployment ticked down slightly, but it doesn't, look at labor force participation. That hasn't measurably increased, and that's still 1.5 points below where it should have been. The jobs aren't being created at all. Trump had already gotten unemployment down below the level it's currently at. The problem is that you've lost now 2 years of economic growth. You're just barely recovering to the rate we were at 2 years ago. Well, the economy's grown since then, and the number of jobs hasn't actually increased. Most of the job shuffling, it's horizontal mobility anyway. It's someone who was flipping burgers is now working at a cash register. Someone who was working in a cubicle in an office in Acme Corporation now works for X Corporation, and they're still in a cubicle. It's not, no, they made their way up. They took their time during the lockdowns when they couldn't work. They were on furlough for 6 months. They took their time to learn a new skill, and now they've started a small business. That's the bullshit that's being sold to us right now, but it's not happening. It's not reality for 99% of those people. Great for the handful of people that really, they did a lot of cram studying and shit. They really went all out when they couldn't work. Great for them. Some of them attained upward mobility. Some of them killed themselves. Now, Biden's not going to talk about that either. Is he going to talk about the new fentanyl epidemic? The fact that overdose deaths have skyrocketed in the last couple of years because of lockdownerism? Is he going to talk about the fact that SCOTUS is probably about to spank his ass with regards to the OSHA mandate? That might happen before the 1st of March. Imagine he has to take that L at the same time. And he says, despite not doing anything new, I'm the one that got the COVID deaths down. It's interesting because when COVID deaths were soaring during the last surge at the early Biden admin, they blamed the governors. Then when it started going down, it was Biden's responsible. Now that cases are surging, it's the governors again. Shh, but not New York, even though they have record cases too. It's just that evil DeSantis, even though their cases have peaked already. Omicron will go the way of the dinosaur like every other wave, and they pushed it back largely because of that, and largely because they are throwing a Hail Mary, hoping the next inflation numbers that they will fiddle with are less bad than they currently are. It's pathetic. It's a statement of failure to push the State of the Union back this far. And not say, well, I'll do it in a couple of weeks, or I'll do it in a month, I'll do it in the middle of February. That would be historically normal. But these aren't normal times. You have a demented president who needs a lot of prep time and has literally nothing to take credit for. He will literally be attempting to take credit for a reduction in COVID cases that everyone saw coming if they can read a goddamn bar chart. Everyone knows that Omicron will burn its way through the host reservoir before March 1st. It'll probably begin peaking in the next week or two in the United States. Then it will begin quickly declining. It's burned its way through most of the available population, vaccinated or unvaccinated. It's not clear whether the former gets as much resistance. It's going to disappear. And then, COVID cases will probably flatline for quite some time, some months. Well into, you'll probably have a summer surge at some point. Well, Biden will, by the way, it'll be the governor's fault then too. It won't be Biden's fault. It's all those Floridians going to the beach. That's about all. Peace out.